CCIEORDIE.COM. I'm Artek, and this is CCIE Lab Builder. The folks over at CLN, the Cisco Learning Network, were nice enough to give me a copy of the Cisco or the CCIE Lab Builder to give it a test run, and that's what this video segment is all about. First thing you'll have to do is get a subscription, naturally, and the next thing you'll have to do is log in. And once you've accomplished those tasks, you'll be brought into a lab configuration builder screen. And that's where we are now. I've saved at least one lab, and we'll take a look at that. We'll load that lab file. We're going to load lab from LDC. I believe that means it's local. It's going to bring us into that. And let me bring up this last one. Open. And there it is. As you can see, I've built a switch block here, core 1, 2, and dist 1 and distribution 2, and I've already set up the interfaces. Setting up the interfaces is a little tricky. One thing to remember, while you're in the lab configuration builder screen, as we are now, your subscription won't be charged any time, which is a good thing because it's going to take a little bit of getting used to navigating this screen. Once you run it on IOL, here when you click on the Run on IOL button, then your lab time or your subscription time will start being counted. But until then, I would say take as much time as you need here to get things looking fairly decent. It's a little tricky, but you'll get used to it. In fact, I'm definitely testing out the switch portion of it primarily right now because that's really what I'm interested in with IOL, is to see the layer 2 functionality. I do have a lab where I use GNS3 on my real switches through a 3750 using Q&Q, which has been great for me. I take the virtual GNS3 environment and use it with the real switches, and that's great. But it'd also be nice to have the complete functionality of the switch environment and the routing environment all in one place, like it is here. So let's add a switch. In order to add a switch, you just drag and drop any device. Just drag and drop. Notice you get a configuration dialog coming up, and it will ask you to label the device. You need to uniquely label that. It's labeled for you. Notice it's switch 5 or S5 here. You get a configuration dialog box to put in a configuration, or what I would say a preliminary configuration that would establish connectivity for you between the devices. The primary configuration I would think you'd want to do under IOL, but just to establish connectivity between the devices so you can get around the environment and then do further configuration. You'll notice that it comes up with the default of IP base. I would prefer using Advanced Enterprise, and you notice you have a selection of the amount of modules that you can use. I've selected 1, which gives me 4. You notice here each one of these is an Ethernet interface. See, that one's Ethernet 00, and I've connected that to Ethernet 00. If you highlight it there, it pops up. And these two, the side connections, I've made E00. The up and down connections, I've made E01 all the way through, and then the cross connections I've made E02. And that's just for the sake of my own sanity. Obviously, you can connect any way you want. Let's drag another device into the environment, and let's look at a couple of features about setting up. If we select these devices, we can align them, which is very important for me because having a messy topology would just absolutely drive me crazy. So we select the two by just dragging across them, and we will line them towards the top with this button. Let's see the top line, or we can do them on the bottom once we've selected them again on the bottom, and we can do them side to side, or over here on the left side, or over here on the right side. We'll choose left. Great. So let's do that one more time, and we'll align them on the bottom this time. Now, you can move your ports around, but you're not going. What I've found so far is you cannot move the ports around until you've made a connection. So you notice we have the pop-up for E00, and I want to connect over here to E00. I like to connect like ports, and we'll do that by just selecting it. It is a little tricky at first. It takes some getting used to. There it is. And we'll make that connection from E00 to E00. And there it is. And notice it does Manchester style by default, which I don't really like. I would prefer having them straight up, or they call it straight routing. So we want to select that connection. There, once it turns green, then if you hit the S key, you can straighten that out. But notice you still have the far end to the near end over here because of the position of the original port. So you can move them around. It just takes a little bit of getting used to. But here I want to move this one over to this side and this one down here to try to make it straight. It just takes a little bit of practice, a little bit getting used to. You'll see. And let's see, we'll try one more time. There we go. That's not too bad. Once you click on the device, it's going to come up with a unique label. You can obviously change that to something else, like I have up here, Core 1, 2, Dist 1, and Dist 2. And we'll get to that here in a second. It also brings up a configuration dialog. What I would recommend here is doing some type of initial configuration just to get started, so you can push the devices into IOL and run them, and then make further more detailed configuration from there. So what I've done is I've established some basic connectivity between the devices. Let me add Ethernet interface E0/3 switch port mode trunk, and I've added enable secret, and the telnet lines I've added as well, so I could choose to move around within one telnet session or open a multiple. We'll get to that part. Again, I've chosen my image as Advanced Enterprise, and here we'll click on, let's get rid of these devices by highlighting them and just hitting the delete key. And we'll start with Core 1. We can call it Core 1 here, or we can just rename it with the host name command once we're there. And let's get rid of the configuration that we have in here by clicking on that, delete that, copy it from here. Again, just a basic configuration to establish connectivity between the devices once we go into IOL. Control V to punch it in. And there's not really a save button, so just click on the next one, and I'll change the names later. Let's get rid of that, and we'll add this one as 2. They're going to be in the same subnet. Again, I just want to be able to establish connectivity so I can get around the devices once I'm running them in IOL. And we'll add the configuration with Control V. Same with this one, and we'll change this to 3. I'm pretty sure I had that configuration in there, but just to make sure, Control C to copy, Control V to paste it, and the last device, and we'll want to make this one .4 and copy that one in. Click on it again. Control V to add the configuration. Great. And now we can save our configuration by going to File, Save as LDC file, and you can load it as an LDC file. The LDS file, I believe, is a distribution file you're saving on the Cisco servers themselves. Here, I believe the LDC is just local. Again, I'm still new at this, and I'm learning as I go as well, but what I've seen so far of the layer 2 capabilities, I'm actually pretty impressed with, and I'm very excited. So anyway, we want to run our topology now. Well, actually, first, before we do that, if we double click on an open space in our configuration builder, it will allow us to add labels. You notice I have core 1, 2, dist1, dist2, which I did add. So once you double click on it again, it'll allow you to edit, and we'll call this CCIE Lab Builder. Good. And you can change the font by either hitting the minus key, makes it smaller, or Shift plus will make it bigger, and you can move it around as such. And that's great. So let's spin these devices up and have a look. Naturally, you can add shapes. Again, these are your alignment tools. I haven't even touched the routers yet. I really am more concerned with the layer 2 stuff. And so let's take a look at that now. An interesting point, and definitely a selling point for me, is when you're in the lab configuration builder, you're not being charged against your subscription as far as time is concerned. So take your time. You're going to need it, and initially it takes a bit of a learning curve trying to make things neat because it will take a while to get used to, but not that long actually. I was surprised. I'm pretty happy with the way the switch block looks, and it looks even neater once you run it in IOL. So let's click on IOL, and it's going to bring up to a blank screen, and then it's going to connect, and the devices are currently getting set to go, and that's great. Now I've already made some adjustments to my telnet sessions. We'll look at that. If I click on it, it's going to bring up or it's going to ask me what service I want to use. You can choose an application that's currently running or that is on your PC, or you can use the built-in K-Telnet service. That's what I'm going to use. I just wanted to show you this. From here, I'm going to turn this dialog off because I'm going to use K-Telnet service as the default from now on. You notice I've made adjustments to the way my screen looks at first, and we'll see it operates. Notice it's taking my password, and so this is switch number 1, config T. Let's change the host name to core 1. Good. And let's do show CDP neighbor. That's great. It sees. That's excellent. So let's have a look. Let's show span. You'll see it's using IEEE by default. The priority is 32.769 because it's VLAN 1, 32.768 plus 1. Pretty standard stuff. Let's ping, see that our SVIs are working, 192.168.1.2. It should ARP first and then give us a hit. Oops. There he is. It took a little while. Not bad. Again, show CDP neighbor detail. And from here, you can either open up a new telnet session by clicking on the device directly. And there that one is. It's coming up now. Or you could do how I would prefer to do it, would be to just telnet between and then exit out, Control Shift 6, X, etc. You know the routine. So if we do 192.168.1.2, it's going to ask us for the password that we pre-configured. Great. And config T, hostname core 2. And let's show CDP neighbor. Great. So core 2's neighbor, core 1. That's excellent. So again, show span. Check on some of the functionality of span. Let's Control Shift 6 X to go back. Control Shift 6. There it is. Back to core 1 while still leaving our session open. Show sesh. And there we have the session to core 2 is still established. If we hit 1 and enter, it's going to bring us back. And Control Shift 6 X to go back to core 1. Great. And show span, which is great. This is excellent. I'm so pleased, and Spanning Tree is working properly. If you've used GNS3 with the 3640s and the 16 port switch module, I think you have a very, very limited capability with that. Here, I think this could, I'm not sure about private VLANs, but I think this could probably get you through CCNP switch. Jury's still out on that, but I'm pretty confident from what I've seen so far that this will get you through CCNP switch. What is it? $300 for 100 hours. That's quite a bit. Again, when you're building it, you're not using up your time. Notice my time is ticking away though now as I'm in IOL up there. See, I just got it a couple weeks ago. I was out of town for a couple of weeks doing some switch builds, and I really have just started to have the time to go through it lately, and yeah, I'm pretty impressed. So let's config T. Oh, we wanted to do show span. Oh, this bridge is the root. Yeah, I don't want that. Let's go back to 1. I think we still have that session live. Yes, let's make core 2 the root. Config T span VLAN 1 root primary. We know that that's a macro, and it's going to work on here. Do show span. Excellent. It changed it to the root. That's it. That's definitely a good thing. All right. And then let's exit. You notice we're shared because the type is IEEE, the legacy spanning tree protocol. Let's Control Shift 6 X. Show span. And let's change it to the span mode rapid for rapid per VLAN spanning tree plus. Do show span. And let's exit here. I want to make those shares go away. Go back to session 1 and show span. And config T span mode rapid to show span. It dropped our session. Control Shift 6 X. We're back. Show span. Share peer STP. Not sure about that. Let's go back to 192.168.1.2. It's still converging, I believe. It's going to take a minute. We did go to RSTP, so there we go. EN show span. Peer SDP. I'm not sure if I like that. It really shouldn't be that way. Anyway, there's much to learn here, and this was just a brief introduction to get you up and running on here. If you don't have switches, this looks like a pretty viable alternative. Certainly, from what I've seen so far, It appears stronger than GNS3. So it's definitely going to get my recommendation for the layer 2 aspect of it, and I will continue exploring it, and I will make other videos showing more of the detail of it. Thanks for watching.